Welcome back, Epic 7 fam, to another first thoughts and initial impressions video. This one will be on Holy Flame Aiden. So yeah, we're halfway through the episode 4 story now, so it's time for another evolution for Aiden. This one is the Flareon variant as opposed to the, I guess, Leafeon one. Is that a Pokemon? Am I dating myself at this point? Regardless, I'm going to give you my 2 cents on what I think about the kit, where I think she's going to be played, things like that. As always, if you enjoy this style of video, leave me a like or consider subscribing. Helps me out here a ton. So let's jump into it. So Awakened Aiden, Holy Flame Aiden is something you can unlock after completing Chapter 6 of Episode 4. So for the changes here, you can see the S2 Blade Gust will be changed into a passive defensive spirit, and her S3 Gliding Slash will be changed into a new attack Explosive Cut. Normally, I would show off the video here, but there's not a whole heck of a lot to show because she has the same animations as Verdant Aiden and a very similar intro. She has the same exact stats as well. So scrolling down here, let's just talk about her new skills here first and foremost, and we will review the old ones as well. So if you remember, her old S2 was a AoE attack that gave unbuffable to all enemies, and her old S3 was a single target attack that had an 85% chance to defense break, as well as provide the weakness exposed unique buff. And weakness exposed gave your whole team 10% extra damage when attacking bosses or elite monsters. So that's kind of the refresher on what those moves used to do. So now let's take a look at her new S2, which is a passive defensive spirit. After suffering an attack that targets all allies, when the caster has a debuff, has an 85 to 100% chance to counterattack with Fiery Blade Gust. Fiery Blade Gust takes priority over a counterattack with a basic skill. Basically, if she's on counter set, you will always counter with Fiery Blade Gust over the counterattack if that's the one that procs. So if both proc at the same time, you'll always get Fiery Blade Gust. You won't get the counterattack. This effect can only be activated once every 2 turns. Fiery Blade Gust attacks all enemies with a Blade Gust and increases the speed of Aiden for 1 turn. So this is in some ways better and in some ways worse than the old skill. Obviously, I think, me personally, I would rather have 2-turn unbuffable as opposed to a 1-turn speed buff, because the unbuffable gives her utility in things like the Abyss challenge modes that we most recently had. She was amazing there. Whereas just having a speed buff with a generic AoE counter is not super exciting, but in some game modes it might end up being pretty good. It's going to depend. I think that the best usage for the character is going to end up being Blooming Snagglitch, and by the end of the review, you'll kind of see why I feel that way. And I think that this passive works fine there because it will just translate to a lot of damage over the course of a game for free, so I'm okay with this skill. The S3 Explosive Cut, you acquire 2 souls upon use, and it has a 4 to 5 turn cooldown. Nothing has changed since the last S3. Attacks the enemy repeatedly with a 75 to 100% chance to decrease defense of the target for 2 turns, and then grants Willful Flame to the caster for 2 turns. So, it is a 100% chance to decrease defense, which is huge because the old one was only 85%. So essentially they have addressed Aiden's biggest weakness, the one that she pretty much had from before. She was also an Expedition character as Verdant Aiden, and I guess now a minor Abyss character. She was pretty much designed, it felt like, for Pain Pursuer Moroi. But I think she fell short because there were other options like Eevee that have, are more frequent at defense breaking. Like, you had a better chance to get a defense break with other characters than with Aiden, because if you missed the 85% chance to defense break, you'd have to wait an awfully long time to get another shot at it, and it really makes your run suffer as a result. So now having a 100% chance is a lot better on it. The Willful Flame, though, that's debatable. When a fire elemental ally attacks, it penetrates the target's defense by 15%. Willful Flame cannot be dispelled. So, it is probably going to be more damage with Willful Flame compared to Weakness Exposed. The drawback is that you have to have an all-fire team. So the only real place you can play an all-fire team in the game is either Advent or Blooming Snagglitch Expedition. So that's kind of why I feel like she's going to end up getting pigeonholed there for the most part. The other change that they, for some reason, didn't put in the patch notes is that Ankle Cut now is a heal, her S1. So that already lends itself again to playing her in Blooming Snagglitch, because the current Blooming Snagglitch teams don't play any Soul Weavers. They play DPS that have healing capabilities on them to keep up the damage. So that is another reason why I think she's going to end up being a Blooming Snagglitch character. But overall, Explosive Cut, if you have an all-fire team, is significantly better than the S3 on Verdant Aiden. And then we've already had pretty solid damage. We'll have to wait and see if the damage numbers on these ones are the same. For example, if Fiery Blade Gust, the S2, has like a ridiculous multiplier on it, then maybe it ends up being this mode just ends up being just strictly better in a lot of scenarios. But again, being locked to an all fire team to get the unique buff is kind of annoying, but here we are. So now let's keep moving down here, and we will talk about her skill tree, her runes, so to speak. So she has a this is the one thing I want to know, actually. So looking at this health rune, increases health by 15%. I don't think that stacks with Verdant Aiden. You're going to basically start with a powered down version of Aiden compared to where you just were, and have to build back up to a complete character. So yeah, health rune increases health by 15%. Achievement rune effectiveness increases by 25%, which is kind of nice because it helps with that defense break. Thorn rune increases attack by 15%. Trust rune increases dual attack chance of fire elemental allies by 5%, which again, really good reason for playing her in Blooming Snagglitch, because Mercedes gets combat readiness, for example, off of a dual attack. Cecilia gets a defense break. You have Kana, which will get you more AoE damage as well as some healing. You know, these are just some of the characters that you use. They're the ones that I use, and they all work really, really well with dual attacks. You get a lot of value out of the dual attacks. Wedge Rune increases critical hit damage of all allies by 5%. That is a little low. I think I would rather have had the critical hit chance from that all allies got from the wind one, just in case I don't have a 100%. 5% is pretty low, though, overall. I think they could have been a bit more generous and made it like 10%. Glory Rune, when an ally attacks and it's not their turn, damage dealt increases by 5%. Obviously, synergizes really, really well with her S2 passive, but also really good with, again, characters like Mercedes with Magic for Friends, for example. Courage Rune increases damage dealt by her S1 Ankle Cut by 10%. Life Rune increases the amount recovered by Ankle Cut by 50%, so you get extra healing, again, solidifying her in that role that we're talking about, like with Bomb Model Kana in Blooming Snagglitch. Guard Rune, when using Fiery Blade Gust, has a 100% chance to dispel one buff from the target. And then finally, Speed Rune, when using Explosive Cut, has a 100% chance to grant increased attack to fire elemental allies for 2 turns. So yeah, again, the kit is just designed to be played with all fire characters, and I don't really think there is a better spot than Blooming Snagglitch, and she's free. So that basically means that you could make a really powerful level 3 Blooming Snagglitch team with just this Aiden, Bomb Alcana, who's free, Mercedes, who's free, and then either Roz, who is free, or Red Cecilia. Like, honestly, I predict after this character comes out, a lot of people will drop Ball and Saison for Holy Flame Adin if she Aiden, I'm sorry, if she ends up being better in terms of damage than he is, because his whole thing is that he has a really consistent defense, like slow cooldown defense break, but it's only 85% chance, just like with Verdant Aiden. But it is on a 3-turn cooldown, and he does have slow to help kind of with the same thing that Cecilia does. Cecilia has that role of keeping the character slowed. We'll have to see which one ends up performing better, but I think she might be gunning for his spot. She might even be gunning for Kana's spot. I think Mercedes and Cecilia are still the best options in their respective slots, but I could definitely see her making her way onto the optimal team. Alright, so now let's move on to the other thing I wanted to talk about in this video, which was the 3 new exclusive equipments. It is for DIENE, which is a shocker, Infernal Kawazu, and Zahak. So, the change to DIENE here, this exclusive equipment, Halted Pocket Watch, it has speed of 5 to 10. That's insane. So if you recall, I was talking about how DIENE getting a buff might help her solidify her presence at the World Championship, because she traditionally does very good in the World Championship format because players play less risky. They play a lot more defensive because obviously there's a lot more to lose on the line. So I was basically saying I think DIENE will show up in the World Championship with just the buffs. With this EE, she will almost assuredly show up because we're currently in a format where Battle Frenzy gives 15 extra speed to Soul Weavers. So this character is going to be zooming. And I don't necessarily know if she'll take the crown from Amelia as most played PvP Soul Weaver, but she might. She might come back for her throne because of the fact that this gives 10 speed. She's probably going to be playing in like the 280 speed bracket with this exclusive equipment coming out. And that's insanely fast for a Soul Weaver, especially one like her who pretty much cycles on everything she does. Every single thing she does gives combat readiness except for her barrier until now. So let's look at the actual options here. So the first one is for her S1 Light of Judgment, increases the combat readiness of an ally with the highest attack by 5%. When the caster has a buff, this effect is doubled. Not quite as good as Handguy's S1, but pretty close, because Light of Judgment already gives a ton of CR to DIENE to begin with. So being able to push up another ally as well helps the team zoom along. The next one is on her S2 Blessings of the Goddess, increases the barrier strength by 10%. DIENE already has one of the best barriers. I don't think you need to make it that much better. And then the final one is on the shield as well, increases the combat readiness of all allies by 15% when using Blessings of the Goddess. So yeah, either the S1 or the S3 one, or the first or the third, I'm sorry, are going to be the ones that people will play. And I think it's going to be one of those ones where you have to test it. I think most people will gravitate towards the 15% CR on the barrier because it allows her to essentially function as a CR pusher at the start. You can use your S2 to essentially bump up the team and potentially cut in front of somebody with, say, like a Landy, for example, if you have it on your team. Wow, like, I still can't believe that this EE is real. It's just like Blue Kisei, where it is a total game changer and will completely shift the meta just by its sheer existence. So, yeah, this was not what I was expecting when I woke up this morning. DIENE gets an extra 10 speed on top of 15 passively from the format that she's played in. So, really strong EE. This is like a 10 out of 10 or like an 11 out of 10 EE for the most part. This is one of the best ones we've ever gotten. Next up is Zahak. His is a Spell of Tragic Love. It gives 7 to 14% attack, which I guess is fine. I usually would prefer my DPS to get either speed or crit chance because it opens up more build paths or gives them more viability, because speed is just still too dominant and they haven't showed any signs of stopping speed, making speed worse at all. So yeah, we'll take 14% attack. The first option is on his S2 Elaborate Plan. It increases the attack of the target, because if you recall, you have to choose another target and you give a shield based on that target to him and that ally. So now you get an attack buff as well for both that ally and you. I don't play Zahak, so this one will require some testing, but it seems fine on paper. The second one is on his S3 Execute. This one is the one that is the most interesting to me. Inflicts resource reduction on the target by 60% before skill's effect when using Execute. So resource reduction originally only appeared on Penelope, and it's been so long that even I don't remember all the things that it does, but I'm pretty sure it basically just completely depletes their fighting spirit. So this would be a 60% decrease, which I guess is meant to make Execute really good against Apocalypse Ravi, as well as Lionheart Sirmia, which are two prominently played damage dealers. So I kind of like this one the most because it gives Zahak a niche that he otherwise doesn't really have right now. And even if he sees even a little bit of an uptick in play because of this, that'll be fine for the most part. Like, he does get a little bit extra damage because now you get 14% more attack. And then this gives him that niche of like, hey, we're going to turn off Apocalypse Ravi's healing for a while. Or, oh yeah, you countered me with Sirmia. Well, I'm going to counter your Sirmia with Zahak and make it so that you don't get any, you just can't spam your S3 because my Execute is going to make you super easy to kill because of the injury. and then you're just not going to be able to fire off your S3 to punish my team. It's just not going to work out. So I think that gives him more value and more playability, and that's why I like this one the best. The last one decreases the skill cooldown of his S3 by 1 turn, which just feels like the throwaway option when they don't really know what to do for a third EE. It's still mind-boggling to me, by the way, that a move called Execute isn't actually a real Execute. It doesn't have Extinction. It doesn't instantly kill behind underneath a certain percentage. Like, if the move Execute actually was like, oh, they have 40% or less health, 40% or less health, I'm sorry, you just get like an instant kill. So yeah, it's very strange that a move named this doesn't have any kind of execute properties whatsoever. And I think giving like Extinction as one of the EEs would have been a really cool thing. It gives him again a niche that he otherwise did not have. And then finally we have Inferno Kawazu, who also has Flame Armband, gets 7 to 14% attack. His first option is on his S2 passive, Malicus's Power. Blazing Fury, which is the active component once he gets hit by an AoE attack and cleanses everything, will increase his combat readiness by an additional 5%. A guildmate let me know that it's 20%, I believe, is what he already had. So this one is an extra 5, so 25, which puts him in line with like Politis, which lets him do his job against like AoE teams, for example. So I guess it's a fine EE. The second one I'm not really super sure on. Whenever he activates his S2 passive, he now gets immunity for 2 turns. The best use I could think of is like Para S2s you. You get Malicus's Power to trigger, you cleanse all the buffs, and then you get the immunity, and then that way she can't follow up and stun you with like a Soulburn S1 if she has the souls or just gets a lucky S1. So I guess that's fine. It's probably useful somewhere to someone. I don't play Inferno Kawazu if it's not obvious, so I'm not exactly 100% sure which one of these two is better. And then the final one is on his S3 Flames of Destruction. Silences the target for 1 turn when using his S3. When the caster is granted Vigor, ignores effect resistance. So his S3 usually dunks a character, can almost kill it outright in 1 hit. So having a silence on top of that is guaranteed. So if like you fail to kill a Ruel, for example, they're basically going to be debilitated, and it's going to be easy for you to pick up the kill. So honestly, all 3 of these seem playable to me. I actually think this is a good EE. It's like, I'd say like an 8 to 8.5 out of 10. Again, DIENE's probably like a 10 out of 10. Sahak probably closer to like a 5 or a 6 maybe. So, you know, a pretty good overall set of EEs. If I missed anything, as always, let me know down in the comments below. But the other thing I really wanted to talk about here is that the collaboration rerun will be announced on May 26th. So if you didn't see this, make sure you start saving your bookmarks, because even if you already have all the characters from ReZero or Slime, whenever they rerun a collab, they usually bring it back with a new character. So in the case of, like, say, ReZero, they might bring in Subaru as a playable character, or in the case of Slime, we might get, like, Xion, for example. So let me know down in the comments below how you feel about the fact that the collab rerun is coming back. Are there any characters you're hoping to see? Do you prefer it to be ReZero or Slime? I'd just be curious to know what your thoughts are on that. And with that, I'm pretty much done here. Look forward to how to play Hua Young at some point this week. I am working on it. It's just been a very busy past couple of weeks or so. So as always, have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day, and so on and so forth. Later.